Alright, so this next part now, we are going to delve into some of these scripting concepts. So let's see here. So the first thing that I want to do, this is actually before we do the ragdoll stuff. So remember how we disabled the original, enabled the ragdoll? I want you to do the reverse now. So disable the ragdoll and enable the man again, because we want him to play the animation here. So we just want this happening. So yeah, make sure you get the ragdoll disabled. Don't delete it. We need that file. Just disabled and this marker man enabled. So now what I want to do is I want to just teach you the basic interaction of a trigger. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a cube. So go to game object, 3D object, cube. And now I want you to take this cube and I want you to scale it to the size of this goal. Picture this cube like being the goal's net, right? So scale it up. So everyone should have this. And now disable the mesh renderer. So all we get is just this shape. It's exactly what we want. So now what I want to just kind of briefly explain . Basic interaction that we're going to have here, right? So we have our player right here. You know, he's got like his camera. This is our player. Our player shoots balls, right? Shoot ball. And shoot ball generates a ball. Right? And then on the other end, we have our goal post, right? And we have our goalie. We need to detect when this ball crosses the goal line. So to do that, what we ended up doing was we got our trigger. So this is a trigger. It's the same as a collider. The only difference being that it doesn't bounce off it. It just goes through it. So think of a trigger just like an invisible barrier, that when something goes in that barrier, in this trigger, an event gets fired. And that event could be anything that we want it to be. But in this instance, we need to first just detect that this enters this. And specifically what we're going to do is we're going to run just a few lines of code. One is going to play a sound. One is going to maybe change the animation on the goalie. And one is going to increment the score or something like that. So I'm going to show you how this works. The next thing that we're actually going to do too is we're going to actually put a piece of text up here that's just going to be like a 0. And you'll see how we're going to do that right now.
So basically we're detecting when it hits the cube, right? Other than going through it?
Yep.
Is there a reason that we made it big or why?
Oh, there isn't. It just illustrates like that it kind of looks like a net. So the most critical step to making this collider trigger is, you can see right here it says is trigger. You see that on the collider? It says is trigger. Check that to true. So when that's true, now this collider becomes a trigger. Make sure you're not doing that in play mode like I just did. The other important thing too is let's rename this net, okay? Don't just call it cube 3 or whatever. Let's rename that to net trigger or something like that. Just so that it's easier for us to find, okay? So go ahead and do that right now. You disable the mesh renderer. Click the cube. You see this right here? So you just disable that mesh renderer on the object that you want to hide the mesh. So mesh renderer is a component that just draws the shape of the object. So yeah, we wanted to basically hide that. Okay. So now what I want you to do is I want you to create a new C# script. So go to Create C#, right click, Create C# script, and let's call this script net trigger, something like that. Once you have that script, double click and open it, and we're gonna delve back into scripting. You can do create. Yeah. Wait, you're doing it on which one? Yes. On which one? On the disabled one? Yeah. Enable it. The bot, you now? You sure you're doing it on that one? Okay. Create. Sure. Just don't press play. That's fine. Yeah. Oh, no. Maybe it's just the ragdoll, isn't it? You wanna just download the package that I did? We already have the ragdoll.
You can actually drag outside of the box. This box. You're trying to stay in the box, right? Right up here. Here? Yes. Forward.
Forward. Just start a new project.
You don't have to stay inside the box. That's your file. So it actually helps. You know what I mean? But you have to start there. You don't have to stay in there.
So just call it whatever, and then when you're in it, just make sure you switch platform to iOS render.
You just got to think about this as far as like, this will maybe flow that forward.
It's just crashing backwards. I think it's starting a new project. Then, yeah, the right one. Yeah, then go to File Build Setting. And then switch to your platform choice. Switch. You don't have Android? You don't have that either? You don't have, maybe you open another version of Unity now. You have 2 versions of Unity? You sure? Check. Is it in his computer?
Yeah, I might have 5.2.
Well, it's not, that's not the one that we were using. But yeah, you don't have, didn't look like it was there. Just, you should still work on it, just import back to it. I don't know, just download it anyway, you should have that. I don't know why it wouldn't let you switch platform. Just install everything, especially when you're using a new like development environment. It's like another gig or two. Doesn't hurt to install all this stuff.
I've downloaded the SDK driver.
No, I know, but you need to have the Unity export. You know what I mean? So just open it. Just try to do this thing. And just follow along. It'll be pretty easy. but I'll get everyone back up to speed. So now this net trigger script is going to be on our net trigger object. So in order for you to detect this event, it goes like this. So it's not in update and it's not in start. It's actually its own void. It's its own function. So you see this? So I want you to click here and just make a few extra lines like this with enter. And you're going to type like this. So it's going to be void. And it's like this capital O. So on, trigger, enter. Oh yeah, let me make it bigger. Sorry about that. Yeah, don't be shy. If you're squinting, I can zoom it. So make sure the capitalizations are the same like this. It's usually every first letter of the word is capital. So on, trigger, enter. Then you open parentheses. And then you write like this with a capital C, collider, other object, or other objects. This could be anything. This is just saying like what's the object that's actually going in it, what's it called. So you can call this like you know my soccer ball. So collider, my soccer ball, or whatever. So just to make it clear that this is up to you how you want to name this collider. But it's a type of collider. So collider is a component that you've probably encountered earlier, right? Everything has a box collider or a mesh collider or whatever. So what this basically means is this is the ball's collider that's entering this trigger. And we're going to use this actually to make sure that it's a ball that's actually entering and not something else, for example. But it doesn't matter right now. Just type it in like this and then open this curly bracket here and close the curly bracket here. So that's very important. And this basically creates one chunk right here. So everything that happens in here is going to happen when something enters the trigger. So yeah, make sure you open a curly bracket and close a curly bracket here. This also needs to have its own close, so don't use this one. That's its own thing. So just make a few spaces there and open and close it like this. Now, before we actually go in here and play our event, what's going to happen, we need to decide what's going to happen when this trigger enters, right? So the first thing that I want to do that I think it's pretty simple is we could play a sound. So if you go back to Unity and if you click your net trigger, we need to put a sound on this net. Now I don't think we have any appropriate sounds right now, so I'm just gonna go to good old free sound. If you don't have an account and you don't want to do it right now, I'll just put it up on Slack right away. But I'm just gonna go to freesound.org. You need an account. You need to be logged in to download stuff from here. So, and I'm gonna look for like a goal sound.
It's in! What a go! Go!
It's funny.
Go!
I know, but I always use that one. It's very loud. Love it. Too loud. I'm just gonna use this one. I think it's kind of fun.
Go!
Alright. So I'm gonna get this guy. Yep, I'm gonna put it up right now. So if you want the file right now, just go to Slack and Here it is. So it's up there, and then when you have it up there, oops, I seem to have been recording myself this whole time. Yeah, so grab this goal wave file and drag it in here. And again, for those that didn't see the script, all we did was made a net trigger script, void on trigger, enter. So now I'm going to click my net trigger, and of course I'm going to drag my script onto that we just wrote. So this net trigger, I'm just going to drag it in as a component, boom, like that. And now the last thing that I need to play a sound on this net is I need an audio source. So to find the audio source component, all you go is you go here to component. So you select the object that you want to play the sound. You go to component and you go to audio and audio source right there. And when you click that, you'll see that it'll add this audio source component, and you'll notice that it wants an audio clip right there. So that's where your goal sound goes. It goes into the audio clip right there of the audio source of the net. Yes. Make sure play on awake is not true, because if you do play on awake, as the word says, it implies, it'll just play right on the start. So we don't want that. For something like music or whatever, you want it to just play on start, that's fine. But in this instance, we want to control when play happens. So
Component audio, then
audio source, then drag your audio file into the audio clip.
what would people do that?
Do you have the audio file like right here in your project? And then you just drag that audio file right here in the goal.
How did you add the script again?
I just pulled it, net trigger, I just pulled it onto it. So the last step to actually make it play, so again, this is the same as what we were doing yesterday. It was, in order for communication to happen between components, between game objects, it has to know what audio source it's talking to. So like, Unity doesn't make this assumption that, you know, it just needs to play a sound when something hits it. You need to tell it, okay, I want to get this audio source component, play the sound. That's all it needs to do. Now the script and the audio source are on the same object. So the only thing you need to do to play the sound is you need to do get component. You open these arrow brackets, you type audio source. Now you notice that it's written exactly the same as the name of the component. So just like how yesterday when we did get component rigid body, we're doing the same thing now. Get component audio source. You close the arrow bracket like that, open and close parentheses, and now you got the audio source component, and all you do is dot play. Open parentheses, close parentheses, semicolon. And that should work. No, yeah, you don't put that there. Yeah. Oh, you got the backwards keyboard. I think that's when you have it. I already hear someone's playing their sound. So, sure. So if you just press play, Now the reason why there might be a delay and stuff is because it might wait till the sound is finished playing.
Sound shouldn't be playing, is it?
No, you'll only play if the ball goes through the goal.
We don't have that split again.
So you should actually be able to shoot the ball by just left clicking, right?
Really?
Yeah, isn't that what we did? Yes, as you had your own shoot ball script. But remember we did it yesterday?
Yeah.
Where's your scripts? Right here. You have your shoot ball script. Is that right? And then it wants the ball prefab. Right? Got a slight delay because the sound was affected. A slight delay.
Wait, why was that?
It's just because the ball lost its texture. Ball prefab.
Then,
So you should need to. Because we imported a few things. So this is your prefab. That was mine.
now.
Yeah, you scale it to make a big map.
But one is prefab, one is prefabs. It's not the same.
It won't open my.
Yeah, yours is fine.
Don't modify.
Or this was mine. I forget which
Don't
one.
modify the collide.
But it just might have overrode it, you know. So instead of selecting that ball, just select this other ball.
Okay, so I need to.
But you're gonna copy one of those.
Copy stuff.
Take the top beam and duplicate. And then bring that out and scale it to the fucking out.
So the sound effect takes a sec, see, because it's kind of like. Let me actually tweak that. So now it's working. Yeah, let me click. So yeah, let me tweak the sound effect. Actually, you'll notice a lot of times you'll have stuff like this too. Like you'll find like the right sound effect, but if you click it, you'll notice how there's a lot of empty space here. The beginning of the sound file. That's why it has a slight delay, and it has a lot of empty space after it as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use Audacity, which is a free sound editing program, and I'm actually just gonna clip it, and I'll clip it and I'll give it to you guys. You don't have to download Audacity right now, but there's many different sound editing programs out there. It's really kind of a preference to which one you choose, but they all kind of work on the same principle. So you delete all this empty space here, you delete all this empty space after, and then you save it. Wait.
One thing I noticed is that by shooting 5-6 different balls, it only.
It waits for the sound to finish, that's why. So let me see now. So if I pull this sound file in, yep, so that's more what we want it to look like. So I'm going to put this as improved goal sound. Call this goal cut. And it's right here on Slack. So use the better sound file. And to change the sound file, you just click the net where we have our sound, and we put it here. I am also going to take my player and put him a little bit closer to the goal as well. Oh.
Go! Go! Go!
There's something going on with where the wall's going on.
Yeah. I want to see what's going on with that.
Yeah, because I saw it on his, and then it's actually from your.
Yeah, so the reason is because we're instantiating without a position. We're just instantiating. That's why. So if the balls are coming from a weird place, which they probably are, I want everyone to just go into their shoot ball script real quick and just make one slight modification. So everyone have their shoot ball script open. And here in instantiate, we're telling it to instantiate what object, but we're not telling it where to instantiate it. So I just want to put a comma right here, and I want to type transform.position. So that means we're instantiating right on our own position. So right after instantiate my ball prefab, comma, transform position. Let me see if that works real quick, and I'll put the code right back up. Oh, nope. And then it also wants a my ball prefab rotation. I believe that's it. Yeah, so it wants the position and the rotation that the instantiation is happening. Is basically we're instantiating my ball prefab where? Right on our own position. What rotation? The original my ball's rotation. So I just use the rotation of the prefab. So now when you move the player closer, it should be able to play. And then come up, my ball prefab. My ball prefab. So that means basically that you're taking the original rotation that the ball was saved with. Yeah, whenever you reference like a transform, every transform has a dot position, dot rotation, and dot like local scale. That should be coming out right in switch once we go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Seems to be working.
Yep. You're playing us now? Is audio on? Let me see the net again. Can you turn it like camera face out? Oh, the camera?
Yeah.
Hold. Oh, you need to be, yeah, it is. And then the last thing that you just, when you do the new project thing, you have to go to player settings here. You have to virtual reality enable. I told you guys to download it. This doesn't have. There's it. I see what you did even before it's an internal, so I thought that maybe I should do something.
When in doubt.
Everyone downloaded this version. See, hers has virtual reality supported right here. She's using 5.6.0 final 3, you're using 5.60 beta 1. Which is why the virtual reality supported thing. But well, you're gonna need that to build to your phone. I definitely recommend you put that to download. Well, hers is fine. Your build, you got like a little bit of an earlier 5.6. So there's a way to actually just do the look around thing, even without that. But it won't work on the phone. So we're just gonna do like a quick fix. But just go to the Unity site and just get yourself that version. So just click on, go to Google Unity, Unity download the whole version. Google. Oh, you're fine. Well, I mean, it's all kind of like, yeah, see. You always gotta like look at the multiple angles. There is no easy way to do it. You have to just be used to kind of looking at things from different angles. You really want to make sure something's in the ground, and push it all the way in the ground until you see that it's getting clipped. That's kind of like my way of doing it. And then the trigger, same thing, your trigger was in the air, so that's why it wasn't truly protecting it. The player should be more to
directional facing anything, but it's, yeah, I love people. That's exactly what it's for.
Go!
That's
That's where this, whatever object the script is on, which is the player, well, it's going to appear where the player is. The script is on the script. I know it's very specific to where the script is. So if you click on player, all these scripts go there, and you touch the ball, and you look at that script.
Go!
Look at the digits.
Oh, yeah.
So pretty much
On
the player
trigger.
it's gonna get the stoppable here with players. Because it's gonna
It has to be very specific.
of the pressure on the syntax. So that knows where your starting point is with your and then the rotation.
You heard the sound like, yeah, but you probably want to change it if you want to clap one. Now we'll start sooner.
So,
That's a good way. Yeah, look it up again.
that object that you're shooting.
Which is the macro feedback.
So, yeah, download archive. And then just get the 5.6. Zero, yeah, download on the window. Oh, Mac, sorry. And, did you anything install? Which one did you do when you did it? But did you end up, did you download another version of Unity or just you've been using the same one?
We're pretty
I
much
had
just
the
telling you.
latest one of them.
Whatever the thing download.
And you did it like this from here? They gave you that one or you downloaded it?
No, I think I got it straight from Unity. That one too.
Make sure it's not downloading that. Yeah, see, this is the
Let's say you're
F3.
playing a
That's the one it should have.
like you're creating a game.
Final 5.6. You got like an earlier beta version, so it looked back when they didn't have the virtual reality.
So you might be shooting that way, so your arm.
So yeah, just
The new rotation is in your shooting, all of your arms go way by, so it changes on your arm. That's why you would have that.
Yes, right.
You have the two straight rotation instead of five. That's just a thing.
and then make sure you got this.
So when there's optimal location, it's
Yeah. Whichever way the ball.
Go! Go!
So the player might be facing one way, but the forward the ball.
And then
It's just forward, whatever forward it is.
meantime, just gonna show you a simple trick.
It's already
So
you
you want to be able to look around, right?
Yeah.
So you can always
knows that already.
get yourself like a
But
camera,
then you still need to tell it, when you create this ball,
script, or something like that.
it's in both ways, move towards the forward. That's the thing.
I mean, here's like a full script.
We're just telling you to
Take the whole thing.
It's out, just go there. Not giving it any. It's gonna be
They
stable.
just really what's called smooth mouse look. And you just go in and do it and make that smooth mouse look script. Call it smooth mouse.
I know, I'm trying to.
I believe, I'm not sure if they did the using stuff up there. I think they just put this stuff, yeah. And then just make sure you just, oh, they did have it there. Yeah, I doubled it now.
What am I creating?
I literally, you just delete the whole thing
Where is it
and
going
just
to start?
replace it with your
Which
script.
way is it going to be?
Save,
Where is it?
and then you should be able to put that onto the camera. And now if you play, there it is. It's got the smoothness on it. Yeah. I want like there's a non-smooth one. But where's your browser?
So this script right here is on what's called the player. There's a back, right? The script is in here. See right here what's just kind of small?
Let's just call this one house look.
So what we're doing is when you're writing
Yeah, smooth mouse look.
composition like that, it's taking the transform.
That part I
Just try to delete everything and just paste it in that whole script. Save it. And then if you go back, yeah, and then put that on the camera. Yeah, I made it back up. Go ahead. So basically, because it's older code, so some of the syntax is right. So it updates it automatically to the newest. And you can just remove that one.
I see. I mean, that could be good.
Yeah.
I know. That confused me when I first saw that, but it's.
And that's right.
You
should be able to just.
It's just something that you can call out. You could write game object in there also. Just think of that. You could literally write game object.
So now all that's downloading.
Mm-hmm.
Game object
And for that part, you can do they're interchangeable for that one.
I think it's still.
You know what I mean?
It's not doing. It's doing the Unity download assistant. It's right here too.
So
Still doing its thing.
it.
Shouldn't take too long.
So do I have to reopen it?
Well, you can open the project you're already working on, and it'll just update it to this version of Unity. And it wouldn't take too long. It's not too far of a version. But yeah, you need this version in order to be able to export to your iPhone. Are you running on your iPhone? Right?
Yeah, it's an iPhone.
Okay. I was gonna say then you should check the Android. Alright, good. Is everyone else getting that goal on playing? Okay. Which the first bit? I don't know what's on your computer, man.
I looked up something that said maybe the operating system might be
Did you try to restart your computer? When did this just start happening?
So that's how it evolves. Whenever it improves,
So weird. Did you say you restarted a computer?
Yeah, look up on Google.
it doesn't actually.
I don't know.
The moment
I really don't. I can't remember that on my
start,
I'm not really sure. Let's see if it does that.
immediately gets gravity pushing. That's what that says. Velocity. It immediately, the moment the ball appears, it immediately has its own descriptors on the ball. So the ball moves.
Did we try to make some more?
So then overlaps the ball.
Yeah.
It's just creating the ball won't be there.
So,
right, but when you call, how does it know it's the same object between the two? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
It's like if this, if you can do five, I would say, and I had another script that said, great follow.
okay.
Follows are the bottom.
So let's continue with this. So, everyone watching what we're doing here? So now we got like just a simple little trigger effect going, right? How would we do score now, right? So it's not that hard to keep track of score internally, but we want to visually show the score. So there's a built-in Unity technique to draw some text in 3D space. And you make it like this. So you go to Game Object, 3D Object, 3D Text. And you should see something like Hello World should show up. So it might look very pixelated like this. So what I need you to do to make it less pixelated is when you click that new text, you should see font size is 0 here. So make the font size much larger, like 32 or something like that. And then make the character size right here where it says 1, make it something smaller like 0.1. And then you'll get a much sharper, crisper text.
Increase the font size, what was the other?
And then decrease the character size. to something much smaller. So basically that's kind of like the scale. Just picture like font size, you know, you can make it even crisper, but make it font size like something like 48 or 72 or whatever, and then just scaling it smaller. And then you kind of get like more pixels. So
No, because go to model develop and open the script you're trying to edit. It looks like you just can't launch it from the
oh yeah, it should still work like that. So change the my new text or whatever to just 0. So again, to create a new text, it's just game object, 3D object, 3D text. Make sure your settings are similar to this, like a really big font size and a really small character size. And then I want you to take the score and place it right above your goal. Make mine even a little bit bigger, something like that. So we're just gonna say 0 right here. So you change the font size much larger, and then you change the character size much smaller, and you kind of make it like condensed. So you see the font size right here, and the character size right here. Make it small, just make it big. So click the text, yeah, the 3D text object that you created. Yep. So now this text, rename the object to something like score. It's fine if you have it called new text, it doesn't make a difference. It just to kind of, to make sense of it. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna open our net script again. So now this net needs to know which score we're talking about. Now again, the net has no concept of what a score is. The net has no concept of what a ball is. It's all kind of the links that you make. So a score in our instance is just a piece of text that says 0 right now. We want to make it say 1 and then 2 and then whatever, as many times as it goes in. So the way that you do that is really simple. The first thing that you need to do is you need to actually define in your script which piece of text are we changing. So the way that you do that is like how you do everything else in Unity. You make things public. So the moment you make something public is you can expose it to the rest of the program. So now I want you to pay attention. You don't have to click here, but just look. When I click the score component of the text, it's called what? Text mesh, right? So could you guess what component then we're going to make public? Text mesh, because that's the one that we want. So everything has the same naming convention. So here what we type public text mesh, like that. And then we call that something like my score or whatever you want to call it, right? So public text mesh my score. Make sure the T and the M are capitalized like that. Again, all of the major Unity component functions types, usually the first letter of the word is capitalized. So that's just like the programming thing. So public text mesh my score. Now you'll notice that when you click your trigger object after saving that script, you'll notice that the net trigger right here, see that? Now it updated with an empty field for the text mesh. So it wants that link so you can tell it which text mesh you're talking about. And it's as easy as just dragging your score into that text mesh right there, and boom, the link is made.
Can I see that code?
Yep. So all we did was we just wrote public text mesh my score right here. And by making it public, you'll notice that this text mesh field will become like a field in the inspector.
And so then back to the other one, sure it works because I see on the regular Unity screen, but I check to make sure it works.
So that you click the trigger, which is where the script is. We have the script on the trigger, and you should see right here under net trigger, my score should be a field there. Like an empty field, and that's where you drag your score text in there. So now net trigger will know when we reference my score, it will know that we're talking about this specific instance of the text in the world. Now, a text is a type of string. The fact that we're just showing it as a number is just kind of like our choice, but it's not really a number. It's a piece of text. It is a number. Numbers can be text, but not all texts are numbers. It doesn't matter. I know it doesn't. I guess it doesn't. Well, you could say like you can't really do a mathematical function on like letters like that. Like you can't. But with numbers, you can add them up, multiply them, divide them, etc. So you can't really like increment a piece of text like that. What you have to do is you have to have a number that stores this score. So what we're going to do here is we're going to define an integer, which is just a whole number. Remember how we were saying, like for something like score, you're going to use integers, whole numbers. So you write int score is equal to 0, semicolon. Now, it doesn't have to be score. It could be called whatever else, but in this instance, let's just call it score. And it's just a number, just an average number that's equal to 0 right now. Now you'll notice that because this is not public, score will not show up in the Unity editor. If you made this public int, then it would. You'd see 0 right there in your component, but we don't need to. So this is just our own localized number that we're keeping track of. Then you can imagine that it's actually as simple as on trigger enter, right after this audio source plays, you just do score is equal to score plus 1, semicolon.
Shouldn't be my score?
My score is a piece of text. Score is an integer. So let's just call it score number, okay? So we're like really sure what we're talking about. So int score number is equal to 0. Score number is equal to score number plus 1. Okay? An easier way of incrementing something by 1 in programming is you could just do score number plus plus like this. That's also does the same exact thing, just a much shorter way of writing it. The only reason why I write score number is equal to score number plus 1 is just for understanding's sake, so you can see that it's pretty straightforward. Score number plus plus, that actually comes from C++, and the reason is that C++ bragged about being better than C because it had some cool like simple shortcuts like that where you could increment a number just by doing plus plus. And C didn't have that. In C you had to write score is equal to score plus 1. So yeah, it's a very old like shortcut. You can also increment a number like this. You could do score number plus equals to 1. And if you want to increment by more than that, you could do score number plus equals to 5, which basically adds 5 to the left side. So there's multiple ways that you can write this. I'm just going to keep this super simple, score number equals to score number plus 1, just so we're pretty sure what that is. So now we played a sound and we incremented this score keeper, the score number, by 1. We still need to display that number as a piece of text. So Then we go to this text mesh, right, which is my score. That's what we called it here. So then all I type is my score dot text is equal to score number. Yep. Now this might give me an error because score number is a number. It's not a piece of text. So just to be sure, you have to convert score number dot to string. So you're basically converting what's a mathematical number, an integer, to a piece of text that's kind of like between quotes. So quote unquote 1 instead of just the number 1. Okay? And that should just work. So you just test that.
Go! Go! Go!
Pretty cool, right? So I'm going to show the script again.
Go!
Right? It's that easy. Now we're not even doing any complicated scripting or anything, but notice that it's little scripts in different objects. So you write these tiny behaviors on multiple objects. By combining them, you can create complex behaviors from not so much code. If you ever get an error or something like that, you can always double click the error in the bottom of Unity and it'll tell you exactly where your problem lies. So I think your on trigger enter, this whole void needs to be outside. Oh, it is. Wait, you have to put a semicolon there. Yeah.
I guess I can't see it.
And then you see it. That's okay. We're not even on the goalie yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That's okay. She's fine. It's fine. She's supposed to fall. You can also bring Claire closer. Is the text changing? Text changing.
I know, I just wanted to get on the.
You have anything right now, man? Oh, okay. There is there should be extension for this. Sorry for putting it down there. Yeah, so let me see. Yeah, so the only thing you don't have is you can link your actual store text to in here. So you would just have to grab your text and pull that in there. And now the script knows which one you're talking about. You get it? No, you don't need to open it. You already have the script on your net. Wait. No, you don't. Yeah, exactly. You should be putting it on the net. That's why it's always good to name it. It goes on the net trigger, and make sure that your box collider is a trigger. Does it work? You can't just open mono like that? At the same time?
No, I didn't. I didn't do it.
You have to do a semicolon after my score. After my score. Yeah, semicolon. Then save. Yeah, because it's not expecting int unless you semicolon that up there. It's not saved and not build. You can click build there if you want to just get rid of it. No, in the mono. Yeah, just, so you can get rid of that. I guess. Yeah.
So.
You can use your not. Let me get from Unity, but just go back to Unity. See if that's on the so put your net.
Well, I also don't have to sign up for that.
Just put the net. Where's your net object?
Try that, top one's frozen.
Maybe you put the net script on there.
That's right. My counter isn't going up.
So did you make sure that your text mesh is in the net here, the net trigger? So your net trigger, your text counter has to be linked here.
There it is, yeah.
Because then the script needs to know which specific piece of text you're talking about. Now you can imagine that this, you could do this with many different pieces of text or many different inputs and outputs. Like to make this a little more advanced now, right? We can actually make this myscore.text equal to something like this. Open a quote, type score, colon, space, quote, plus. This basically combines the text and it makes it much prettier. So it makes it something like this. So when I shoot the score,
Go!
you can see that, right?
Go! Go!
So all I did was I just showed you how you can actually add two pieces of strings together. So I was wrong earlier. You can add strings technically, but that's the most you can do. You can just add them. So all I did was I did like score, colon, in quotes, and then I plus that to the number. So because the text at the end of the day actually looks like this once this is all counted, you know. That's what it inputs. You get it? It's just this plus score number is the actual number that we're incrementing. So
But you just adding that in to the string?
yeah, just to make the string like, you know, more beautiful. It's a beautiful string. And I can also change the starting text to score 0 and it will just work.
Go! Go! Go!
Still goes through our character and stuff. That's going to be our next step.
Go!
It's going to do things with the character.
Have you changed the string text?
You just click the text and there is the text.
Is that one? Go to your script. Oh, is it first? It's a 3D object. 3D text. At the bottom. And then, as it shows over there. Character size 22. Font size 50. And then in the, this is where your string is, you just put 0. It's going to be overwritten anyway, so it doesn't matter.
So now what we want to do is we want to have this goalie also react. And remember what we were saying earlier, we want to turn him into a ragdoll that he just falls over when he gets hit. So far we've learned what a trigger is. Now we're going to look at colliders. So they're almost the same. The only difference being that a collider actually, like, you know, you bounce off of it. So, but it still fires an event. So a trigger, something goes through the trigger, fires an event. Collider, something hits the collider, it bounces off of it, and it fires an event. So they basically work on the same principle of physics, except one just kind of like is a passive trigger. Another one is an actual like physical barrier that also fires an event. So it kind of depends on your use case. But you can imagine how sometimes you want just an area to trigger an effect, but you don't actually want it to stop something going through it. And then sometimes you want something to actually stop something, like maybe an actual button or a door or many different things. In this instance, our goalie will actually be physically colliding. So something will physically collide off the goalie, and hopefully you won't be able to score if you hit the goalie. In this instance, it won't be too hard because the goalie will just kind of like fumble over. But you will learn how there's a few extra steps to making this thing actually work properly, because you'll also notice that since the goalie is also a collider, the goalie will also trigger the net. So I'll show you how to actually make sure that the goalie isn't triggering the net, but only the ball is. So, but first, let's get down to this goalie, right? So then the other thing, and now we're just really gonna play in this net script. We're gonna make a few more publics over here. So this time, we're gonna make a public transform goalie regular, and another one under it, public transform goalie ragdoll. Makes sense, right? So we're making basically a placeholder for the regular goalie and a placeholder for the ragdoll goalie. And what we're going to do on trigger enter, you can already imagine, is we're just going to turn one off and turn another one on. Oh, actually, oops, sorry about that. We're not doing this. My apologies. I realized this is not the place. This is where we're going to be doing something else. Sorry. Delete that. We're actually creating a new script for the goalie, not for the net. So let's create a new script. So just ignore what I just said. Delete that. Yeah. And just right click here in the project, create C# script, and this time call it goalie. Double click your goalie script. And in there you will write public transform goalie ragdoll. We don't need to define ourselves because we are ourselves in this script, so the script already knows what self means, so we don't really need to define it. We just need to define the other object. So now what we're going to do is a very similar chunk of code to on trigger enter, but this time it's not called on trigger enter. This time it's called void on collision enter. Open parentheses, and then collision other object, something like that. What do we call it here? We called it my soccer ball. Yeah, so we can just call it the same thing. Collision my soccer ball. Just so it's not confusing.
So the name has to be the same, or we're just making it?
We're just making it like just so it doesn't have to be. You can name this anything you want here. But yeah, void on collision enter. Make sure O, C, and E are capitalized like that. And now in here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do goalie ragdoll dot game object dot set active true, like that. And then for ourselves, we're gonna do game object. When you just type game object or just transform, that's usually you're referring to the game object or the transform that's on the script itself, so that the script is on. So in order to turn ourselves off, because we're setting ragdoll to true, we're setting ourselves to false. So the goalie's ragdoll's game object we're setting active to true, whereas our own game object we're setting to false on collision enter. Then your script is pretty much ready to do what it needs to do. I'm just going to keep this up here for a little bit longer if you're still copying. And then I'm going to show you how to, well, we've already done it, how to add a collider to the goalie. Put the script on the goalie, and that's it.
Do we have to put the name before game object of the other one?
It just has to be this, whatever it is you define here in public transform. That's the one we're turning off down here. Get it? So the goalie needs to know what the ragdoll is. He doesn't. Again, the goalie doesn't know what a ragdoll is, and the ragdoll is currently on top of the goalie. Remember, but it's hidden. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drag that ragdoll in here in the inspector, and then in here we're turning it to true.
So we're putting this script onto the ragdoll or the regular?
No, onto the regular.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once you have this script saved, go back into Unity, and here you should have a goalie that's regular and a goalie that's hidden. The hidden one should be the ragdoll. The regular goalie, take the goalie script, drag it on to the regular ragdoll, to the regular goalie, and then here it'll say goalie ragdoll none transform. See that? So it wants, it's an empty field. What's the ragdoll object? It's your hidden object. So drag that hidden object into this empty field, and that's it. So now if you press play and you hit your character,
Go!
it doesn't work yet because there's one more step. Yeah, so just put the goalie script onto the goalie, drag the ragdoll in here, and then why didn't the goalie script work? Can anyone tell?
You didn't define the goalie?
I did. There's no, what's it missing? On collision enter is missing a collider. Yes. So our goalie needs a good old collider. Something like a box collider or whatever you prefer. Just if you create a collider like a box collider and it's right around his feet like this, change your collider center to a Y1 and a size of Y2. Something like that. And now it should work. So if I hit him, there he goes.
Go!
Score went up to 9 because there are about like 9 body parts that went into the goal. And you'll see that how we regulate that. So
Go! Go!
yep.
So what did you turn on?
You have to add a collider to the goalie. Just your goalie itself. So once you have the goalie script on him and you put the goalie ragdoll, you define it in there in the empty field, you just have to add a component like physics box collider or something like that. Just it needs a collision area for it to detect the ball. Well, you wrote the script, right? So you pull the script onto the goalie. Yeah, so you need to go in there again. And Oh, you got a semicolon right there. No, above, yeah.
So unstoppable.
And then game object, the game object is lowercase. When you're talking about like an instance of a game object, like a specific one that you're in, then O is capital, so just the first key. You'll see when you're autocomplete, like when you do jobs, game objects, just do it exactly how I showed you. And now it should do that. So whenever you get these errors, that means something's up. Yeah, and there's still one object reference. Yeah, so the same thing, game object is kind of so it's an object reference is required, whereas when you have it like that, it's in the groups, that means it thinks you're talking about the class game object, not the actual game object. So now it should show up. It's set to do this. So that's entirely you put the ragdoll in there. Yeah, and then just also put a collider, size the collider around the
collider with a
it's a physics, yeah. It's a component of physics and it has a collider. So you can do the box or capsule.
Yes.
Oh yeah, so you have to follow your ragdoll into the field there. So it needs to know. So first, press play. Get out of play mode. Yeah. So click the passive marker there, the goalie, not the ragdoll goalie, the regular one, yeah. And you pull the ragdoll in there, so it knows which one to turn on. In the empty field. Do you get why? Because it's like the goalie script. It doesn't know. Remember how we said we gotta turn one off and we gotta turn another one off. So in order to turn this on, it needs to know which one we're turning on, which is the hidden one, right? And then itself, it's setting to false. So now it should just work.
I made it to a lot before that.
Trigger. Ragdoll. You're going to put that on the non-ragdoll?
Oh, you might have misspelled. Yeah, you did something. You did on collision under.
That's the thing that was fixed that.
Yeah, then it didn't know what to do with it. Yes, now it should do it. Yeah, it's usually something like that. It's probably a typo or it doesn't work. So I don't know where your ragdoll is. Right here.
Just a little bit, another one. Cheat as much as possible.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. We'll try to do that.
No, the ragdoll should be, the ragdoll's the one that's off by default. Normal one.
Because it needs to know, you get it, like, we're just doing a specific use case, like goalie, ragdoll. But in any case, if you're turning an object on and off, it needs to, you just tell it which object you want to turn on and off by making it public, and then you drag it in there. And then.
That's exactly the question I had. I think we were actually, there's two different scripts where, when you're talking about the script, there was a ball fire, a fireball, and there was a player, right?
Shoot ball.
Where do you
Yeah.
go?
The shoot ball is just creating the ball, whereas ball fire is actually making the ball move.
But
And
then
ball
we
fire is on
actually
each ball.
drag the script into that, so as you
Take the one that's rigged up. And duplicate that.
Yeah,
one.
you only drag the prefab of the ball into the shoe because it needs to know what it's creating, what object it's creating. So that's why you pull it from here. And then when you save a prefab, in order to instantiate an object, like to duplicate it, you have to have it as an asset. So that's when sometimes you drag an asset in here. If you're working with an object that's in the scene, like a goalie ragdoll, and you just want to enable it or disable it, you drag it from here. But if you're cloning an object, like the ball, you create one instance of the ball as a prefab, and then that connection you make there, and then you can instantiate.
You gotta add the animation.
That's interesting on this.
So take your animation control and put it on there, instead of override the ragdoll. The ragdoll.
Exactly. Because it's like you create agnostic code. Like the code just creates something. It's you're the one at the end that chooses what you're actually instantiating, what you're actually creating.
Okay, so that'll override the rigging, so that should work. I'm gonna say should because I don't know what I'm talking about.
But that's the basic concept. You can kind of start understanding now how these connections are made. So now we're talking through multiple objects, multiple components. We have a score component, we have a net component, we have a goalie component. They're all interacting with each other in the right ways. The only bug that we have so far right now, and it's for mine definitely, because the goalie just kind of falls over into the goal. And since the goalie is also a physics object, all of its body parts count as a score, which is incorrect. So, or yeah, it could be. So, how do we make sure that our score only gets incremented by the ball and not body parts? So there's a few different ways you can do this. It's usually going to be through an if statement. So you're going to check if my soccer ball is equal to something, then increment the score. If not, then just ignore. So let me show you a really simple way to do that. Now what's important first is that you find your ball prefab. So I have mine right here in soccer balls. And I want to divert your attention to just when you click that prefab, or any object really in Unity, up here you should see tag, untagged. So the object is currently untagged. Now I'm going to explain what tags are. So tags are like these easy little meta tags that you can tag an object as a certain type of object or tag. It's just like an internal thing. But maybe you have 5 different types of balls, but they're all balls. It's a ball. So you would tag it as ball. So what we want to do here is we want to create a new tag. So if you just click here where it says untagged, and you click on add tag, it will open this tag menu. So any object has that. In this instance, I want you to click the soccer ball prefab that you're spawning. Go to the tags right here, add tag, click the little plus icon, and new tag name, call it ball, just lowercase ball. And then you go back to your prefab, you click it, and then when it says untagged, you select the new tag you just created from the list called ball. And now you just tagged your prefab as a ball. So I'm going to show one more step, and then I'll come around and get everyone caught up on how to do this tag if you didn't find it. But again, any 3D object can be tagged. So whenever you click it, it's always right above transform. Here are the tags. So again, click the soccer ball prefab, go to create a ball tag if you don't already have one. Once you created it, click the prefab again and tag it as ball. Then in the script, this on collision enter, I'm going to make just a couple of new lines here right above goalie ragdoll just to give myself some space. And I'm going to write, now notice what enters the collision is stored in this collision object. Okay, now we're actually not going to do it on the goalie yet. We might not need to. I actually want to go to the net script. So not the goalie script, but the net script. So we didn't change anything on goalie. Just go to the net script, net trigger script, and just make a few new lines right after on trigger. And here you're going to type if. Now again, on trigger, enter. And then here it says collider, my soccer ball. So that collider, my soccer ball, is what's entering the trigger. So we need to check this collider. So the way you do that is you do if, open parentheses, my soccer ball dot tag double equals to. So in programming, when you do double equals, it's a comparative. So that's how you do, like, if something is equal to something, you do double equals. If you do one equal, that means you're actually making something equal to something. When you do double equals, you're comparing if something is equal to something. It's just a programming thing. But when you do my soccer ball dot tag is equal to something, you're literally going to change the tag to that. But when you do my soccer ball dot tag equals, then you're checking if, and then here you write a quote, ball, quote, end quote. So if my soccer ball dot tag equals to, in quotes, ball. So you're basically just checking the tag of the collider that's entering into the net trigger. And then in order to actually have this if statement apply to this whole chunk of code of 3 lines, you create a curly bracket here. So you open a curly bracket, and then after these 3 lines of code, you close a curly bracket. And then you'll see that it'll indent it, and then basically this becomes one if statement chunk. And now if I press play and I shoot my goalie, even if he falls in, he will not increment the score. See that? But if the ball does, the ball does.
Go!
Okay? So I'm just going to keep that up there. Gotta make sure everyone's up to speed. So again, now we just learned, we already been doing if statements. If you don't have this curly bracket, the if statement is only true for the first line. That's just how it is. So, but when you make this curly bracket open and close, then this if statement encompasses everything in here. Was yours doing the same thing, incrementing the score?
Yeah.
Goalie fell in? Yep. Yep. Just double click on the arrow.
Yeah.
And I'll open the script editor. Yeah, you probably have to make another, so right after this, so after toString, after. So no, just like at the end of the line, you make an enter, and then make another curly bracket, close curly bracket. So it opens it, and see now how I indented it? So you can always check where they open and close just by clicking them like that. Hit save it. And it should work. Figure out that would good. Now you still haven't tagged your ball as a ball. So you have to find this ball prefab.
That's
this one, right? See? Not tag. So you have to tag it as ball. You created the ball tag, then you have to again go back and actually tag it as ball. Just by creating the tag doesn't mean you actually tagged it.
But then we create a tag.
And then you can use that tag for many different objects as well.
That's the name of
So,
the
okay,
which is
the
the
problem
ball.
was that we're
I
hitting
had
multiple
that too,
lines
is
on
I
the
keep my
first
ball
one,
line off the
keeping the
instead
score,
of my
but
soccer
why
ball.
are we putting the score on the ball, not on the first one?
We're not putting the score on the ball. It's just we're just tagging the ball as ball, and then on the net script, you're checking if the thing that's entering the net is it tagged as ball, then increment the score. You get it? Because before, anything that entered the net did all this, including the player, the goalie, which also has colliders. You know what I mean?
Is that why?
That's why it was incrementing like 9 body parts every time we went in. You know what I mean? So that's why we had to make sure to tag our ball as a ball, and then we're checking if that tag is true, and then now it will actually increment. So now if you click, it will actually eventually score. But it doesn't. See? But it will never do this score unless something that enters is tagged as ball now. Get it? Yeah, because your ball prefab is not a tagged as ball. So I press play. So you need to find the ball prefab. So I make sure that that's the one you're actually shooting. I'll take the player and shoot balls. So let's hold on trigger enter.
Space collider, then put the brackets around there, mark that. There you go. And then
Well, the data is changing, but it is not incrementing it. The reason is, you made score number equal to score number plus plus. You should just score number plus plus.
Did you add the tag to your ball?
Yeah. That's where
Go
it
to
got.
prefab. I'm going to go to this. Tag. Then the tag, see right there. Underneath it. I click that, go to add tag. Then hit the plus. And now it's open something. Ball.
And now you click the ball prefab again, and then you tag it as ball. It should show up there in the tags. Untagged. Should have right at the bottom. Yep. So you get how you can use tags is like just a really easy way to kind of like tag a group of objects as like a certain tag. So tags is very useful for something like, I use tags for like trees, maybe like all trees should have a certain effect when you hit them or something like that. You can use tag for I use tags for players, like online players that are in the scene. I tag them all as online player. When I do Connect stuff, I tag all Connect body parts as Connect body part. So then you can do some really cool functions in Unity, like you can do game object find game objects with tag, and then it will give you a whole list of all the game objects that are tagged with that tag. So it's an easy way to find all of the same tag game objects and etc. So tags are very useful for kind of like keeping track of what's what and just basically tagging things. Like, why do we tag things? We tag them to kind of keep them organized, to make sure that we keep them grouped in a certain way. So what this allows you to do is that no matter what object goes through, even if a brick goes through, it will not increment the score unless the brick is tagged as ball. So now we're getting a little bit more intermediate, right? So now we've learned quite a few interactions here, and what I want to show is another interesting one, because so far, our goalie, right? If we hit our goalie, he goes ragdoll. If we hit the goalie is still like in his ready animation. So I want to play a new animation when the goalie, when you miss the goalie and when you score a goal, you can make the goalie like dance or something like that. Ideally, I guess you would find an animation where he's like pissed or something like that. But since we already have a dance animation in our project, we're just gonna use that one. So what we're gonna do here is, or you know what? I mean, maybe it'll be kind of stupid to use the dance animation. I'm gonna download this right here. So let's just look for a good one, and I'll put it up on Slack so everyone has the same one. So let's just find an animation. like angry or something. Angry gesture. So yeah, this one. Yeah, and then at the end of the animation, we'll just make him go back to like the regular goalie animation. We can do that. So I'm just gonna download this and I'll put it up for everyone. So here it is. So it's just one file. It's not a zip file. So here it is. It's on Slack. So everyone go ahead and download Passive Marker Man Angry. Now, if you're not using the Passive Marker Man, and I am, that's fine. There is one step that you have to do to make a different character's animation work for your animation. Now, this is all very trivial now. I mean, when I say like one step to make like a Passive Marker Man's animation work on like a demon, like zombie or something like that, that's actually like a very high level feature that was not possible not that long ago. You used to have to rig each character and you had to animate it on that character. You could not like give an animation. I mean, you could, but it was complex. Like an animation of like a smaller character to like a bigger character. It didn't really work. Well, Unity has a few built-in features into their animation system where it can detect a humanoid shape. So it knows that it has the same arms and legs and stuff, and it adjusts to scale. Even if, like you'll notice in Unity, it'll work if you put an animation of a little chicken on like a bear. As long as it has a humanoid skeleton, it will work. So the only thing that you have to do after you import that animation, which mine is called, wait, did I put it in? Angry?
Passive Marker Man?
Yeah, so when you click the Passive Marker Man Angry, FBX, if you just click here on rig, so a rig is basically those bones and all that stuff that basically animates a character. It's called a rig. So a rigged character is a character that is ready to be animated. So all you have to do is you have to switch this rig type. See where it says animation type generic? Switch that to humanoid. Right there. So that shows up whenever you click your animation, your character in the project, and then you just go over here. Instead of animations, you go to rig. And then once you switch that rig, you apply it. So remember this animation stuff? So you just go to rig, make it humanoid, and then grab your character as well. In my instance, they're the same, but in your instance, you might be using another character. So same thing, grab the character, go to rig, and make them humanoid, and apply.
So you mean our goalie?
Yep. So your character. So pretty much every animation that we're using right now, we have to make them humanoid. And then I have another one here that I was using, the goalkeeper idle animation. Same thing. I'm gonna make that humanoid as well. So let's just make all those humanoid, and I'm just gonna come around and make sure everyone's got that, because it's the only way that the animation will actually work. In case you're using a different character. Okay, so just every single one you put humanoid. Yep, even the goalkeeper idol. So they all have to be humanoid now. Yeah. So you get what we're doing? Because see, you have like that character and I have that character. So the animation was meant for that character. But if you make them all humanoid, then the animations will automatically.
Is that all applied for Ragdoll as well?
Yep. So you do that to the character, then you do it to the animation. So yeah, that one. That's your character, right? Yeah, so Erica, Arthur, same thing, make her.
What am I
So
doing?
this one was.
So, you should be changing anything, you should just have downloaded that thing from is it this one? Yeah. Yeah, it's already humanoid. This is, kick-off dance, so we're not using that right now. Yeah, I think we just basically made all of our characters and all of our character animations
So you're gonna
like
type
the
reason and then
humanoid.
he's adding another animation.
And that's going to allow you
Something returns true.
to basically use an animation that's not meant to be your character, but it'll still work. So it's basically like an automated way.
No, you said that.
When you check humanoid, then it checks the bone structure. And you can use like an animation like, you know, classic marker man animation will work on your archer. You know what I mean? That's actually pretty significant. You can see if you ever download an animation that's a very drastic different character. Again, it just checks the bone structure. It doesn't actually care about the scale of the individual body parts.
Yeah, so this is the angry, is the.
If I apply it to the regular one?
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah,
It's,
the duplicate ones.
Yep. It all just kind of comes from the same source. So if you just test and press play and make sure everything's still working. Yep. So that happens. So if it doesn't, let me see.
Actually changed.
So you have.
The guy changed.
Yeah.
Character.
Something happened with the character.
Yep. It happens sometimes.
Oh, maybe, is it
So-
because I made a human for the other guy too?
So we're gonna fix it right now. So usually goalkeeper idle. Yes, you have to make the goalkeeper idle also. So that's the idle animation.
Yeah, they're both.
There we go. So you get it? So the animation and the characters both have to be human.
Hold on. And the animation and the
Should work.
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
I did before.
You can figure it out. It's the script, it's mostly in the script. They work on a couple things.
So let me see.
Yeah, now what is it?
So what is this?
Yeah, change that to human. So the animation and the character, they all have to be human. Not the And now when you press play, you should be around. So that's the reason why we're doing this, because it needs to know that they're all of the same type.
Change the guy, right? Is it, what's it?
Drag the text node from the hierarchy we have
Is yours working?
into,
So nothing goes anywhere. You just have to.
What? Is he standing in the case, standing in the doorway? Well, I mean, what's working? So if you want to go back in, you can have that string that says square.
So did you? Is yours? It's not going in the ground, right? But you get why we're doing it. So because passive marker man is completely different shape than the old granny here, for example. So when you make them both of the type of humanoid, then it detects the actual bone structure of the character, and it doesn't care for that there's a different rig, basically.
Yeah.
It just checks the structure, and it still tries to animate, even though your character's proportions are completely different.
Yeah. Cool.
Is yours working?
I don't know if I got a little bit of that. I didn't have the animation to it. What should I add?
The script that stops him from activating.
Whoa. Yeah. So you still. You have. Why are they both ragdolls? Yeah. You made them both ragdolls. Yeah, I think you copied the ragdoll.
Yeah, the other one got screwed up.
Yeah, so just put in like just the original. Yeah. And just place him. No, he should just be a regular guy. So just place him kind of like yeah, just place him inside, and then when you just zero him, get it? I just placed him inside that object. I'm gonna zero it out to make it exactly on top of it, and then I'll pull him out. And then yeah. I know, it doesn't matter. But you should have a goal answer. So the goal answer should go on here, and then the ragdoll should be this way. And then you need a box collider. So there should be one. Oops. Something like that. Oh. Nope. Yeah. And then your net. Oh yeah, you can open it, right. This your net script here, you need to have this curly bracket to make sure that this whole if statement is only. I think that's for this, and then that's for that. So now it should work.
So it's under rig.
Yep. Make sure you do that on the character and on each individual animation. Okay, so yes. Oh, it's because I downloaded it just the animation, and then it came with the character too. Yeah, usually if it's just an animation, you'll see if you click it. Like just click just the animation once. Just the animation. Click an empty one. Yeah. You'll see that. Oh. Yeah, you'll see that it'll share. Like you go to animation, you'll see here it uses like a default character to preview it. You know what I mean? So sometimes if it's just an animation without the actual rig, it'll just have the rig, it won't have the mesh basically. And then sometimes it'll say there's no character to preview with, and you can actually, if you just drag this character in there, oops, so if you just drag that character in there, you can now preview with that character. See that? So it's really cool, yeah. And that's one way to definitely make sure that everything's humanoid and that it's flying. Alright, so now we got all our animations ready. Now what we need to do is we need to play that angry animation when he gets scored on, right? Makes sense. So here's how you do that. So we want to open up our goalkeeper animator. And so far we only have one animation in here. Now some people I know were asking this question, how do you change an animation from a character to like some other animation, for example? So far you should only have one animation in here. Now this whole animator is meant to work with many animations, and the way that animations work is you can see like how this kind of like you have these states, you know, and then you have your animation, and then there's like this arrow gets drawn like that, right? So what we're actually going to do is we're going to create another animation, and then we're going to draw an arrow to that, but the difference being that this arrow will have an if statement. So only if I'm scored on will I get angry. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's a simple little condition. So here's how you do it, right? There's this window here in the animator. Right next to layers, you see parameters right there. If you click parameters, it should say list is empty. So you have no parameters. Now for those that don't know what a parameter is, a parameter is just like a conditional, like kind of like, is something true, is something like a certain value. So in our instance, we're just gonna make one parameter, and you can make a parameter by clicking this little plus icon right here, and you'll see a drop down float, int, bool. So we want bool. Now bool means boolean, which is basically true or false. In programming, a boolean is that 0 or 1. It's that true or false. So that's all we need to know if we've been scored on, we need a value of true or false. So if we've been scored on, true, basically. So the new Boolean, let's call this angry, right? So when angry becomes true, then switch to the angry animation. That's what we're going to do. So right here in Animator, click Parameters, click plus, add a new parameter of type Boolean. And again, Boolean means true or false. And then call that parameter angry, just like this lowercase. You see that that can be anything that you want it to be, really. Now what we do is find your angry animation. It should look like this. It should have the guy there. It should passive marker man angry. And you pull that animation in here like that. And then you should see the angry animation just as a new box right here. Then we need to make a connection between these. So from idle to angry.
Where did the angry come from?
So it's the passive marker man angry. It's the one you downloaded from Slack. So then all you do is you right click here, the idle, and open up a menu. You click make transition, and then you'll see that it's trying to pull this arrow. So I pull the arrow to angry and I click it. And now I've made this connection. So now I have two animations. See that? Now this arrow, in order for me to put that if onto the arrow, guess what? You click the arrow. When you click the arrow, it will open up a menu for the actual transition. So in this menu, you can control the fluidity of the transition between goalkeeper idle and angry. So how long it takes for him to transition. So if I press play, I can see how he goes from idle and then he slowly goes to the angry animation. Now he's like doing that. So I don't actually want him to do that very slowly. I want him to do it very fast. So to make that happen very fast, after you click this arrow, you see this timeline. Just make that timeline really short here. Just make it like happen really quick. I don't want it to take like 5 seconds. I want it to practically be instantaneous by pulling this blue right here. Make sure this thing has exit time is unchecked. Has exit time, if it's checked, it will wait for the last animation to finish before the next animation plays. So we don't want that because the idle animation is really long. So we want it to basically stop it and then play the angry animation right away. So has exit time checked off, and this timeline much shorter. The last step, as you could probably imagine, is conditions. You see conditions here, it says list is empty. So press the little plus icon and it will automatically populate it with the angry Boolean, and it's already set to true. So basically, if angry is true, then do this. Okay? So now we've set up our animator and it knows how to switch the angry. The only thing that's left to do is in our script to make angry equals to true. And then this behavior will happen here. So I'm going to do this last part, and then I'm going to come around and make sure everyone's got this in there. So open up your script editor. Then go to the Goalie script this time, because we're going to be doing this on the Goalie. Well, actually, no. Sorry, my bad. Since this event is happening on the net, when it enters the net will be changing the goalie's animation. Now, that probably isn't the best way to create a complex soccer game. You would probably have like a manager object that keeps track of both nets, because you have two nets in a soccer match or whatever. But in this instance, we're doing it a very simple kind of demo way. So just think of it this way. The trigger enter is actually happening on the net. So the net will be what tells the goalie to get angry, basically. Whenever the net detects this thing happen. So in order for the net to know what the goalie's animator is, you can already imagine, like you see, if you don't have to click this, but if you just look at the goalie has an animator, right? And that has an animator controller. So in that controller is this check mark that we want to check, right? But we want to do that in script. So how do we get the goalie's animator? We go to the net and we write public animator goalie. By making this animator public in the net, we will expose it as an empty field in the inspector. And then you'll be able to just drag the goalie in there, and then it knows exactly who you're talking about.
Should it say goalie or the name of your free file?
No, this is called whatever you want. So, public animator, or goalie. But yeah, you can name it anything you want. So, we're gonna link this in a second, but we just have to write one more thing for this to be true here. So, in this, if my soccer ball.tag is equal to ball, after all this stuff, but still inside these curly brackets, right? So just make a few extra lines here. So then you're gonna type goalie, which is the name of your animator that you have right here. Or you know what? Let's make it more specific. Let's say goalie animator up here. Okay. Let's call this public animator goalie animator, just so we're very specific. And down here, goalie animator dot set bool. So we're setting the boolean inside there, one of the true or false things. Open parentheses, quotes, angry, end quote, comma, true, close parentheses, semicolon. So we're getting the goalie animator. We're setting its boolean. Which one? Because there could be more than one boolean inside an animator. We're setting the one that's called angry to true. And now the last step is for our net to know what animator we're talking about. So if you just click on your net trigger, you'll notice that right under my score, you'll get a goalie animator field will pop up right there. So now you grab your goalie and just pop him in there, and that's it. So now if I press play, the regular goalie. So now if I score on the goalie, see, he gets really angry. He's just kind of like crosses his arms and didn't even try to stop her ball. So I'm just gonna keep this up here. I'm gonna come around, make sure everyone's got this. Well, you pull the actual full goalie. No, not the ragdoll. Because you have to click the net. You have to click the net in order to have it open there. Yeah, and then you pull, and then there. Yep. Now it knows that you're talking about the goalie's animator. You get it? Score. Now if you just don't hit him, because then you're killing. Just try to go again. So just try to actually just score on him.
Wait, then you add in the variable?
Let's see. So parameter angry does not exist, right? So you have to go to the animator, and you have to. Oh, so angry is in uppercase. Yeah. So I was saying it has to be case sensitive. Just double click. Yeah. And then it should. Variable goalie animator is not going to stop. So you have to click your net, and it has to know what the goalie is. So you go down to test with. Yeah, right there. He wants the goalie's animator. So you should grab the actual goalie and pull it in there. Yeah, now I know which one you're trying to talk about, right? Well, yeah, you have to like maybe make the goal a little bigger, or maybe make the burgers a little smaller. So you can actually not hit the goalie, but hit like the goal.
Whatever these, I can't
So check
So go to like, I think that's originally prefabs. Prefabs.
There's something yeah, uncheck.
Try.
inside the player is the camera. Wait, the player
All in
is
there.
camera.
Still, it's still hitting the collider.
Oh, it's still over here?
Yeah, so the goalie is, inside the goalie is the animator, and that's what's on the
Collider.
Nope.
Just try to find a way to See?
So that's what we're saying, the will still get knocked down.
It'll get knocked down if you actually hit it, yeah. I think it just scratches it right there a little bit. Maybe make the box letter a little smaller. Side view. Then you see.
I keep seeing the player above pass and not driving.
Okay.
And then you still need to make it like,
So now the script, now the goal.
but you also need to make sure that your collider is actually encompassing the whole character. Because if you hit like above the character,
This is your net.
yeah,
Your net
so
needs to know.
make sure that you change the center, you know,
Oh, so that's what that.
to the center Y, and then now you can safely make the Y scale.
That's how you make the
Instead of-
image.
You make it
Instead
nice
of
and long like that.
putting
Now you can actually hit the head and
Oh.
The thing is, you go public, like this variable knows that it's looking for an object.
But
So the moment you drag
such close
the,
Yep.
you know, the moment you drag the goalie over there,
It's attached to.
the goal, public.
That's weird.
But I mean, it's the only way to do it. I don't know the way, you know what I mean?
You don't,
Like,
so
the
you're not
goalie
pulling
has
up
that
this,
capital, I know that's the end.
because this is in your project. So these are assets that are currently not in the world. These are just assets, none of these are just files. Our script needs to know in the real world here what we're talking about. So you need to grab Regina right here. She's the one that has
It's really hard to not hit.
script, right? You just need to pull her in here, and her animator is the one that you're actually changing the animation.
Yeah, aim over there.
Try that. So make sure to not hit her, but hit like the side of the roll.
we want to check it out again.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, really? Want to pop up?
And if you hit her, she'll just be a knockout.
Now it's like, there you go.
Yep. Yeah.
And then after he's done,
That's easier to go back to. So,
Working.
good.
Oh, there, finally.
Yeah, so just pull the actual pull that. And then not that way. Oh, you missed it. Well, you have errors here. See that? There is no audio source attached to net. That's the first one. So you need to give it an audio source. Yeah. Oh no! You can't do that. You need, because the script is trying to get this right. Yeah. So you need to have it there. And they'll make it.
I thought I added it to the map.
Yeah, it's you literally have to add it as a component on the net. Now try it. Also, you might not actually hit the guy, hit the net, because it's like you're actually hitting the guy first. So maybe move your player a little bit to the right, and then you should be able to do that. On your end, you should just be able to do the look around because you have No, you can't. So you can't do it because you're still on PC, Mac, and Linux. You know what I mean? So you can't. Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, I taught over there just a quick way to do mouse look. If you just Google like a mouse look script, something like that, mouse look script, and you just grab like, this one. So just take all of it. And you just check what's it called. It's called this is a terrible copy and paste. Okay, this one. You see here, like this is all under the script. Copy and paste. This is what we're doing. So it's just called mouse look.
Yeah.
So you just have to make sure it's either what the class name is called. Then you make a script here and call it like mouse look. Call it mouse look, same way. Has all same caps, exactly the same way, right? See so how it's written here? Mouse. See what we have to write it here the same way.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to keep believe it.
Yeah.
Then in there.
But again, this is.
You have that. I don't know if we can just open that like this. So yeah, find that script and paste that in.
Here's the version. Yep.
Yeah.
Just that.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'll see you Saturday.
The animator is on. You got to turn the animator is what makes that happen. And that can only live on the
So it's not laying angry.
Oh,
Oh, I think is it just finished? Probably. Does it do it from the beginning?
This whole thing is an animator.
Yeah, it seems to be. So play it. So hit it. Oh, shut up.
And this Goalie is the animator.
Yep. So
There's a controller, there's an animator, and animation.
now, if we want to like make sure our goalie goes back to the idle animation once they're done, you know, with their angriness or whatever, it doesn't. So just in your animator here, all you have to do is pull another make transition back to this. Actually, that might not work because angry is still going to be true.
We didn't set that.
Yeah, we didn't. So yeah, it's not going to do that. But yeah, something would need to make the goalie go back to the idle. Ideally, you could do that like on left mouse click or something like that. But
Loop time. If you don't turn on loop time, it doesn't. It goes right back to normal animation.
it does.
Yeah.
It didn't do it over here. It should usually just stop here. But did it? Okay.
Yeah, because we didn't loop time on the angry. So once the angry animation was done, it went right back to the other one.
Yep. So that's kind of like it basically for doing some of this stuff. Now let's see how we could do something like this and have some more fun with it, right? So for this week's homework, and again, you know, homework is optional, but I recommend people do it because it's good practice and it's the maximum way you can get something out of the class. And then if you come, I can help you out with it. And you know, it's your project basically. You're creating a demo project, so you know, you could help realize your idea. So say we wanted to kind of have some fun in this scene, and you know, like if I wanted to make like a little mini game, I could do something like, you know, put my player around here somewhere, put some of these brick walls like closer. Oh, where's the last one? Okay. Something like this. So what I could do is say, for example, I want to count how many of these brick walls I've knocked over, right? So what I could do is each of these brick walls, I can add something like a box collider on it, make it a trigger. Now the size of it, I'm not really sure what it is. I believe it starts here. So might be a little tricky to see, but I can kind of see it. Might be hard to see on the projector. And since the grass is so green, it's really hard to see a green collider. But say you did like something like you size it kind of right around the brick wall. You don't even have to do it like that. You can actually just make, you know, kind of like size it around the brick wall. Like this. Turn off the mesh renderer. You know, now we just got like a nice shape right here. And then if I made a script for that brick wall, call it brick wall trigger, something like that. If I grab that cube, put the brick wall trigger on it, then I'm just gonna use literally the same code that we used, you know, for the net trigger. So I get this net trigger, and if my soccer ball.tag is equal to ball, so same exact thing. And for my score, I get that too, but this time you know, it'll be called something like, I don't know, wall score, right? And the score number, I just call it my score just to be the same exact thing. And if my soccer ball.tag is equal to true, score number plus plus, my score dot text is equal to score number to string, just like that. So now I'll make another piece of text, and this is just an example, you know, how you could do something like this. Grab another piece of text. Here it is. Again, I'll make it sharp by putting the font size up and making each character smaller, something like that. And call this brick walls downed 0, something like that. And then in my, you know, brick wall trigger, I'm just gonna name it that, brick wall trigger. And in there I have this field for this new text that I made, and I call this brick wall text. So I take the brick wall text, put it in my score here, and the only thing is, once the brick wall has been knocked down, I don't want it to keep like triggering itself, basically, because the trigger will still stay there even though the brick wall gets knocked down. So you can just disable it very easily by, after you got what you want here, you just disable yourself, or you can even destroy yourself by just doing destroy game object. So, and then these brick wall triggers already configured, I could just take them and put them in all, around the other brick walls as well.
So far, wouldn't it just be triggered if you hit brick wall as opposed to if you knock it down?
So yeah, you're right. You know, if you want to, I guess that, then you put it behind. No, right? Maybe. Good point. Yeah, technically, if you just hit it, I'm just saying downed, you know, but yes, if you really wanted to make sure.
The thing is that count wouldn't be for all the brick walls.
It'll be for each individual one will get counted up.
Oh, you have to. Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, so here, each one of these is a trigger, and they're all linked to the same text over here.
Okay, that's what it is.
Oh yeah, and I just have to make sure that my score number here is actually, you know, brick walls downed.
But wouldn't that variable only be for one script?
No, because they're all, I just literally copied them, and each trigger has a script in the same exact way. And then I just, again, I'll hide the triggers so you don't see them, and I do that just by, hiding the mesh renderer. And then watch what that looks like. So I go in here, I hit this one, come on. Nah. Let's make them a little bit stronger, right? So let's make the balls heavier. I'm going here, make my ball even heavier, like 100. I know, if I get past it. I know, this is behind it. Come on.
No, you gotta take the collider off.
Oh yeah, you're right, they're all triggers, sorry. So I have to make the colliders, not colliders, but triggers. So you just check is trigger, sorry about that. And then, there it is, right? That's one down, and if I keep going there, it doesn't, right? So I do another one. No?
That's what I was saying, the variables only for that one.
But it should have been.
The thing is, your variable only exists in one of them.
Oh, you're right, the score number. Okay, so here's what you do. So because the score number is being made 0 on each one, we're not actually going to use the score number in this instance. We are actually going to just increment the actual text. And then that's why you don't actually want to write like this. You don't want to write brick walls downed. You'd probably write 2 pieces of text, one just for your brick walls downed, and one for your number. So one for your this, and one for this. And then each one of these, my score.text is equal to my score.text, and this here, you have to, I believe, yeah, you have to make it an int. I believe it's like you do int parse, and that makes the piece of text into a number plus 1, all of that to a string. I know it's a mouthful, but let me see if that works. So I'm basically just incrementing.
Go!
So I'm actually taking the actual text that's on there, and even though that this brick wall doesn't know what the score is, it will just take the text and increase it by 1. So I'm going to explain this now. So instead of keeping like a separate number, which is like you were saying, because each brick wall trigger started with a score of 0. So even though I hit one wall and then it changed the text to 1, each brick wall that I hit changed the text to 1, because that's what it thought the score was. So instead of doing that, what I'm doing is I'm plugging the score text into here, and I'm doing this function int parse, which basically converts a piece of text into an integer, which allows you to plus it by 1, and then I convert it back to a string, and that's all equal to the text. So this is just an example of kind of stuff you can do. So, and now you can make this like as complex as you want, but yeah, for this instance, we're still just a player here in the middle. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to build this to my phone. So everything that we've done so far should be ready to roll on a phone. All I do is plug it in, file, build settings, add by open scene, build and run. Asks me to save the file, save it. So yeah, for homework, have fun with it. Put your own goalie, your own sound effects. Doesn't even have to be a goalie. It doesn't even have to be soccer. It could be anything else you can imagine. A trigger, you know. You can make. Here's a funny one, right? You can make a target, like, and you hit the target, and then someone just becomes a ragdoll, falls into some water or something like that, right? It's just a simple example, because when a character is standing, you can make them like stand on a ledge, you know, like, you know, scared or something. And then when you hit a certain trigger, you know, those like carnival games where you throw the baseball and the guy falls, something like that, and then like the guy turns into a ragdoll and just kind of like falls over. That's another example. But you can make something fun with physics. And now that you know how to do triggers and how to trigger a sound effect or something, so here it is. So it just works.
Fire ragdoll. Fire ragdoll.
You're probably already building yourself, but
Fire body.
Out of curiosity, like, pretty fun. Is there a way to like set up some of the cascade of that, like rocks falling down? Actually sets off the score as opposed to the ball just getting moved to the wall.
I'm not following.
Like right now, the trigger is just behind the wall. Like, could you actually link it to the wall falling down?
You'd have to study how many bricks hit the floor.
yeah, because
Before
it's
you consider it a, you know.
the only reason why I did like a trigger area on the whole brick wall is because like there's so many different bricks in the wall, so I kind of just gave it like a generalized area. If it loaded an old scene, you have to make sure that when you do add open scene, so before you build, you have to click add open scene to open the current scene you're in, and then disable that old scene so it knows which ones to build. Yep. People already work with it. It's an S6. Yeah, they're pretty cheap. And it's great for VR. They can do the Samsung Gear on it too. There you go. Yeah, it's pretty easy to get it working. There's just a asset pack that you have to download, and then you can export to your VR. Yep. So have some fun with this. This one can be very fun. Again, like I said, it doesn't have to be soccer, it doesn't have to be anything like that. It could be anything that you want. Play a funny sound effect. You can make multiple trigger areas. You hit one, it plays a joke. You hit another one, plays another joke. You know, you hit a third one, someone falls off like into some barrels, or I don't know. You can make one actually like, you know, you hit a trigger area and then something falls on like a character and he turns into a ragdoll. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do. But what? Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, you can. That could be really fun as well. So yeah, you have a lot of freedom with this one. You can choose to do what you like with it. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today.